Hi everyone, welcome to another Ashtown Creations tutorial. My name is Stephanie, and in this video we are making the Riptide Handbag by Needle and Anchor. This gorgeous little handbag comes with a crossbody option, basically hooking the straps diagonally opposite connectors like this. It also fits wonderfully in the crook of my arm. It features 3 front slip pockets, 1, 2, 3, hidden strap connectors, and a zip top closure. Inside there is a zippered pocket and a double welt pocket. For this specific bag, the bottom panel is a quilting cotton that I've had in my stash for a while. The light pink and blue faux leathers are from Galaxy Customs. The dark blue shimmer vinyl is from My Punk Broidery. The lining inside is a lightweight waterproof canvas from Mimi Fabrics. My zipper tape and sliders are from Zipper Valley. The crossbody hardware is from my website, although I don't believe it's live just yet. I can't remember where I got the O-rings. I will look it up. I will add links to the pattern and all of the materials that I can in the description box below. I will also list timestamps so you can jump to the section that you need. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and select the notification bell to be notified when new content is available. Please leave any questions or comments in the comment section below. I will do my best to respond as soon as I possibly can. Thank you to Carissa from Needle and Anchor for allowing me to record this tutorial for you. So stick with me if you want to see how this bag is made. Let's go through the pieces for the Riptide handbag. So over here in faux leather, I have 2 pieces. It's the base exterior, panel A. So, and then here is pocket panel 1 or pattern piece B. I have cut one of my contrast exterior, which is faux leather, a pink faux leather. And then I have my lining piece for this pocket. It's a waterproof canvas. It's a lightweight waterproof canvas. It's not Ottertex. Here is pocket panel number 2 or pattern piece C. I have done it in a faux leather and waterproof canvas lining. Pocket panel piece 3 or piece D, I have a quilting cotton. I have interfaced it with a woven interfacing, and I have waterproof canvas for the lining. Up here I have, we're using facings for our hidden connectors, so our strap connectors, piece H here, they're hidden. So we use facing on the outside, twist it towards the inside, and then put our strap connectors in. It keeps the fabric, or it keeps the exterior looking nice. There's no raw edges. So I have 4 pieces of this quilting cotton. It's not interfaced, and I've already drawn my box on the back side. While I have the strap connectors here, these are pattern piece H. I have cut 4 in my faux leather, and I have marked my line down the center and already adhered my Decaville light to the back. So for zipper panel, mine is in faux leather. It's pattern piece G. So once we've put on these pockets on our exterior panel to hide the edges and stuff, we will be adding an exterior frame. It's pattern piece E. I have cut 1 out of my exterior fabric, which is my faux leather, and I've also cut 1 out of a quilting cotton. I didn't have quite enough to match, but it doesn't really matter. It's going to be hidden at the back. It just helps keep a clean edge. So up here I have my crossbody strap. There are 2 pieces to the crossbody strap. One is longer than the other and wider than the other. So I'll be showing you how I do that. Then I have my bag handles. I have 2 of the longer handles and then 2 of my contrast, both in a faux leather. Moving on to the lining, I have here my lining panel F. I've cut 2 of them out of my waterproof canvas. In this pattern we have the option, I guess, of 2 pockets. The first one being our zipper pocket. So this is the main part of the zipper, pattern piece M, and the top part of the zipper pocket is K, and our pocket facing is J. And I will be using, so the main lining, and then we will put our zipper tape in between. So I've got those pieces and the zipper pocket facing here. On this side, we're doing a double welt pocket. So this is double M piece, and both of these pieces are quilting cotton interfaced with a woven interfacing. The same with the top of the zipper pocket. The zipper pocket facing, all of the facing pieces I have not interfaced because it makes it kind of bulky. So back to the welt pocket. So this is the main part of the welt pocket. These are the two pieces here that we will use to create the welts. And again, I've done quilting cotton interface. These are interfaced with a woven interfacing. And the facing piece itself for the double welt pocket is quilting cotton, and it is not interfaced. All right, for the hardware for this bag, I haven't decided if I'm going to use O-rings or square ring, rectangle rings. So I have enough of both. I will decide when I get to that part which one I'm using. So those, and then for the crossbody strap, I have the slider, and then there are they're 1 inch slider, 1 inch that. I think this is a 1 1/4 inch ring. So these are 1 inch swivel hooks for the crossbody strap, and it will just hook on to opposite sides of these rings, on one on opposite side of the other, and I'll show you at the end. For the zipper, exterior zipper, I have zipper tape for my exterior zipper, and I have a really nice handmade, it says handmade on the pull part of the zipper. So I have one for the exterior, and then for the lining one I have a nice little one with, it's almost like a teardrop. So, and then I also have my Ashtown Creations cork label. So I think that's everything for this bag. Let's go ahead and get sewing. So I'm going to take all my pieces and flip them. Actually, I could go like this. And since I've already got that stuff on, I don't need to do that. But I'm going to take some double-sided tape. I'm going to use my 1/4 inch double-sided tape. And I am going to run it down the center. And I'm gonna, you could do it all together, but I'm just gonna cut them apart to make sure, because I don't have them quite even with each other. So I'm gonna take them apart, and I'm going to go along, and I remove the paper off the backing, or off the tape, paper backing off the tape, and I'm going to fold in this side, the long edge, right in to the center, and this gives it a nice edge. The Decaville light gives it a nice edge, so we're pulling it up as tight as we can to the edge without curving it, without making it go all strange. We're trying to pull, we don't want to pull the fabric on an angle either. You want to go straight in. And again, I'm starting in the center of my pieces. Put those down first, just like we do for straps and stuff. So go right into the center, and I can meet up right in the center there. And I will go ahead and do exact same thing for all of my connector straps. All right, now that we've got these all done, we're going to turn around to the machine, and we are going to double top stitch them. So I'll do one line in at about 1/8 of an inch and another one in at about 1/4 of an inch, and we'll do it for all 4. All right, let's top stitch our strap connectors. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch and 1/8 of an inch, so it's going to have double stitch top stitching lines down each of them. So I'm going to batch sew them one right after the other. So I'm going to start on 1/8 of an inch, and then I'll come back and do the 1/4 of an inch, and then we can move on to the next step. And I'm at a 5 stitch length. All right, strap connectors are all done. I probably didn't need to clean them up as much as I did because they are going to be, most of it's going to be hidden inside the bag. So anyways, we can set these aside for a few minutes. We need our exterior panel A and our hidden connector facings pieces, piece I, letter I. I have already installed these. The way I did it is I clipped the pattern piece onto here. So I had my facing pieces already cut out. I had them already marked. On the front part, because I've got them stuck down with double-sided tape, I can sort of see the line that I drew on this side on the front, and I put a little piece of double-sided tape in the center with the piece A, the pattern piece, on top of this. I clipped it around. I slid these in so that these match the holes on the pattern piece and stuck it down. I'm not showing pattern pieces on camera. That is why I'm trying to explain what to do. So yeah, I believe they're in the right spot. Hopefully I got it all right. Anyways, so yeah, you want these boxes on your facing pieces to meet up with the box on the pattern piece. So I've just cut out 3 sides of the box on the pattern piece and flipped it down so I can actually see. So anyways, we need to stitch these on. So I'm going to just grab one, and I want to stitch around each of these boxes. And now the pattern suggests a little longer stitch length. I'm going with a 4 instead of a 3.5. And so I'm just going to go around the boxes, all 4 sides, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I've got it, yeah, as I said, a 4, and we don't want to go outside these lines. So be very careful that you don't go too far into the corner. So, and I will backstitch. I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to have a look at it because it's already puckering, so I'm not sure what I've done. Just going to have a look at it, and then I took out the other stitches from here. My tension was out, so it was causing it to pucker. So I redone it. So make sure you start in a corner and go right to the other corner. Make sure your tension is right and everything. And then we will do all 4 of them. And now we want to take our panel piece A with the facings added, and I want to cut down, like we do for zipper pockets, I am going to cut down the center of this little box and then into a corner. So we'll have the little Y's, I'll draw it out. So we'll have the little Y's in the corner and a little down the center and then into these others without snipping. So I'm going to do this for all 4 pieces. I have my X-Acto knife, my craft knife. Mine happens to be Cricut brand. So I'm going to, I'm starting in at the corner and come into the center, and make sure you have something you can cut on underneath, and then start on the other side and come in to the center, down the center. I find it easier to pull back towards myself into the center than trying to go into the corner. I find it easier to start in the center and work my way, or start in the corner and work my way to the center. So this way I'm not trying to do it this way and I cut too far into the stitches. So start at the stitches and cut into the center. And there we go. Put the cap on. So there we go. We've got a hole here. I'm going to press my facings around each of the sides, just finger press them for now. I'll probably end up taking this to my iron to give it a good press. And then we're going to stick the facing in through the hole, flip the piece over, and pull the facing and the little pieces we snipped to the back, just like that. A little tug in the corners. All right, so to keep the facing down, I am going to take a little bit of my double-sided tape, and I'm going to put some along the top and the sides. Haven't decided if I'm going to do the bottom yet. Yeah, I think I'll do the bottom as well. So I'm going to, all 4 sides, I'm going to stick some double-sided tape on it. It doesn't have to go all the way across. This should be enough. Take the paper off the backing, paper backing off the tape, and press it down. And there we go. One done. I might have to adjust this because we don't want it puckering like this, so I may have to adjust. So I'll pull the tape up a bit and then lie it down flat and then press that in. Stick the tape down. So I'll do the same on the top. So we don't want it all warped. So there we go. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing for the other side. And the one thing you can do before, see, I've already got it cut, before you turn it right side out, you can go and put your tape, your double-sided tape, if you're going to use it, double-sided tape on before you turn it. So it's a little bit easier to get to. Don't take the backing off the tape yet. Wait till you've got it turned through properly, and then take the tape off, or the backing off of the tape. All right, go ahead and grab your pieces A, which is the exterior piece panel, and with your facings already put in, your pieces H, which are the handle or strap connectors, your hardware, I've gone with the round rings, and some rivets. So now we're going to put the strap connectors in the panels. And one thing I want to say before going on is, while you can put this bag together in a lot of different order, a lot of different ways, the one thing you do need to do is put on these strap connectors before you put the pockets on the exterior main panel. It's hard to get in there after. It's written this way so that you put them in before putting the pockets on, but I like to mix things up and do things in different orders. So do some other people. So I just want to say it is important in this pattern to put your strap connectors, your hidden connectors, in before putting the pockets on the exterior piece. So anyways, go ahead, grab your stuff. I'm going to put some of it aside because I only need one from now. So I've got my one piece. I'm going to grab one of my hidden connectors, and this is where the split is on the back here. So this is the wrong side, that's the right side. All right, so we want to find on our connectors, we want to find about halfway. So I'm just going to fold this in half, and with my air erasing pen, I'm just going to mark approximately where that halfway is. We want to make sure your wrong side is facing up, and we are going to stick one end into the hidden connector opening and pull it down so that the line we just drew, the halfway mark, is just above the back of the opening here. And I'm going to grab a couple clips and try and clip it so that it's straight in the hole. I'm going to take my piece now, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to stitch it about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge on the facing side, not on the connector. I'm going to stitch it on the facing. Put it under my needle, and we're going to want to use a joining stitch, which is about a 3, for me it's a 3.5. And I'm going to, should be hidden. You can leave your tails long if you want. This should be hidden. But the other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to go beyond where the connector is. You don't want to go out into here, because then you will see it on the outside of the bag. So you want to stay within the connector. So within that I think these are 1 inch, within that 1 inch. So I'm going to put my needle down, grab my tails. I am going to backstitch once. Have a look. Yeah, that's as far as I want to go. I'm going to backstitch a bit, and I'm going to pull it out. So on this side, I have kept it within the connector. I don't want to go outside, and it's right above that line. Stick this under my foot for a second. Now we're going to take, I got some rivets, so we're going to rivet this on next. So this is a good spot. I have some of these, they're gold, but they're not a yellow gold, they're more of a pinky gold, and they don't really go with a lot of my other gold that I have hardware. So this is a good spot, since this one is going to be hidden, to use up either some rivets that you have that if they're just single cap, and so it's going to be hidden. So if it's a single cap, use up some stuff that you don't like or you don't want. I'm actually going to grab actually one of these just to add it behind, because these look pretty tall. I'm going to mark a dot right in the center, so I can see where my join line is, and I'm going to go in about 1/8 of an inch above my stitch line. I don't want to cut through my stitch line, so I'm just going about 1/8 of an inch above it. I'm going to punch a hole over to my hole punch, and I'm going to punch a hole right in the center. If it doesn't go all the way through, you can try again. I'm just going to grab my hand punch. So that went through. I'm going to grab one of my rivets and pop it in. On the back side, I'm going to put a little bit of Decaville Heavy. So I'll punch a hole right in the center. And pop that on just to hold it, and then I'm going to pop the cap on. And these are a little too big, so I might have to fix that. So I'm just going to turn around to my other press, and I'm going to set this rivet. Okay, rivet has been set and it looks okay. So I'm going to take that off now, take the clips off now. I am going to grab one of my rings, my hardware. I'm going to slip it. So I'm going to slip it over top of the connector, fold the connector over, and pop it down through the opening and pull it out the back. It may take a bit to wiggle. All right, so that's as far down as it's going to go. I'll just move this rivet out of the way. So now I'm going to come across, and I'm just going to stitch again within that 1 inch section, just 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch below, and that's going to stitch all of it together. So I'm going to go through all of my layers, and then I'm going to pop a rivet in the center right below. Put my needle down so that it's within that 1 inch. I'm going to leave it long, and I'm going to pull my threads through the back. So I'm not going to back stitch. Pull it out with threads long. I will flip it over, pull it through to the back. So if you pull on the thread, give it a little wiggle, it'll pull the loop to the back. You can see the loop right there, I think. And I just grab it and pull it through. Again, grab the end, wiggle it a bit. Sometimes it pops, sometimes it doesn't. Get my glasses on. There we go, and I've got it. So now I'm going to just tie it off at the back. I don't know why, but I like things in threes, so I'm going to do it in 3. And I'll do the same for the other side. All right. Now I'm going to look at the front. I'm going to grab my marking pen again, and I'm going to see approximately center. I'm going to find approximately center and put a dot about the same distance away. So the stitch line's about 1/8 of an inch away from here. So this is about 1/8 of an inch away from the stitch line. We don't want to cut our stitch lines. So I'm going to punch this hole. And again, oh, it went through. So since this is so thick, there's a lot there, I'm just going to I'm going to grab a matching rivet now. Now it's important now it's important to match your hardware, if that's something that matters to you. To me it is. So yeah, these are a little more pink and these are a little more yellow. So I'm going to go with my rose gold. I'm going to grab a cap and a post for each, one of each. I'm going to stick my post in. I like to go through the exterior with the post. And then I'm going to pop it on the bag. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to set this rivet. And after I'm done, I'm going to go on and do the other 3 connectors, and then we can move on to the next step. And here we have the external panels with our hidden connectors installed already. I'm actually, don't know if I'm supposed to do this or not, but I'm going to trim down. I've trimmed all the other ones. I guess I missed one. So anyways, so now we've got the hidden connectors all installed. We can set these aside for a bit and move on to the next step. Okay, for this step, you need your zipper panel piece G and your longer zipper. The zipper panel G comes in all together, so it's in one piece that looks kind of like that, but we need to cut it in half. So I've already cut most of it. I'm just going to finish cutting the rest. So they look like this. And we are going to be putting, so there's a curved side and then there's a straight side. So the straight side I've got in the center, and that is the side we are going to put our zipper on. So it'll go in the center here between these pieces. So first thing we got to do is I've got to turn the end of the zipper. So I'm going to mark down on the zipper according to the pattern. And we're going to make these corners 90 degrees. I'm grabbing a couple pins. So I've got it marked down. I'm going to open the end, pull the end. I'm going to pinch at this line. By pinching at the line, it forces the teeth to curve 90 degrees out to the edge of the zipper tape. So I've got that curved. I'm just going to take a pin and put a pin in it. There are ways of heating up the edge and pressing it quickly and fusing it that way, but I haven't had much success, so I'm going to go do it this way. So on the other side, I'm going to pinch with the other hand along the line, and it's going to force the zipper coils to the left this time, to the edge of the zipper edge. Again, going to take a pin and I pin it. I generally pin it right close to the teeth or to the coils, so it looks something like this. So now what we need to do is turn around at the machine, and I need to stitch the edges here. So I'm going to get as close as I can to the edge without coming off and tack this into place. And what we want is for this little piece here to be tacked down, because once that's tacked into place, the 90 degrees won't move. So I'm going to change the camera angle, and we're going to move around to the machine, and we're going to start sewing this up. All right, I've got my stitch length at a 3.5 stitch length. And as I mentioned before, I am going to stitch as close to this edge as possible. I am going to put my needle down in this area, and I'm going to hand crank it until I get past that point there. And then I may, I'll just let it run back and forth, and I'll back tack. And I will do both sides. All right, now we can take this and set it aside for a minute. I want to take these two parts of piece G, and I'm going to grab a little bit of tape. So on the reverse side, on the wrong side of these, we marked a line in from each of the short edges. So I've got one on each end. So now I want to take a little bit of tape, and I'm going to fold it back to that line. So a little bit of tape, put it on the end. All right, got those. Now I'm going to take the backing off the tape and I'm going to fold it right down to that line and press. I'll do the same for all of them. All right, there we go. We got all 4 done. I'm going to flip it back this way. The other thing it says to do in the instructions is find the center. So I found the center and then mark a certain distance away from the center. So that second mark is where I am going to put my zipper, start the zipper. So it'll start approximately there. And then this will wrap around and sandwich the zipper in between, and we'll stitch that up. I'm going to separate my zippers. It doesn't say to, and it doesn't say not to, so I'm going to separate my zippers so it's a little easier to work with. And I'm going to put one of the panels aside. So it also suggests to put double-sided tape on this. I'm not going to because it'll interfere with my machine. As I mentioned before, my machine doesn't like it. So I'm just going to clip it into place. So with the coils starting at not the center line mark, but the one a little bit further away, I'm going to place the teeth right against that mark and start clipping. And I want to go all the way to this end. Okay, now I'm going to baste it into place. I don't see that mentioned. So I guess the tape would be a way to baste it. I'm not using tape, so I am going to actually use my machine to baste it. So I'll baste this on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I'm using a 5-stitch length. And we don't want to sew on the zipper tape past the end of this, because then you'll be able to see it. So I didn't actually I started in from the teeth. I started in about there. I didn't start all the way because I'm just basically tacking it in place. It's going to get caught in the full-on seam. When we fold this over and match up the edges and then we sew our seam, it's all going to get caught in there. All right, so before I go ahead with that, I need to change to a zipper foot. All right, zipper foot has now been installed. So I am now going to fold this end, well, fix it a little, and then I'll fold this end to meet. So I'm going to put right sides together with the zipper caught in between. So we've got the zipper sandwich. Grab some clips. And now I'm just going to clip it along the edge that has the zipper. All right, so now that I have that on, I'm going to try and stitch as close. Well, there is a certain distance away from the edge, and I'm going to try and get as close to that distance away as possible with my zipper foot. Actually, so I'm going to move the clip to the other side so that I can hold it in place, but get in. My needle down, and I'm changing it to a 3.5 stitch length because this isn't decorative. I want it to stay. And I'm going to backstitch, trying not to go off the end. And it's sliding on me. So maybe I will stitch it. I'm going to take these stitches out. See, it's slipping a little. And by the time I get up to here, it'll be really far off. So I'm going to take this out and I'm going to try it again. All right, so I needed to glue it to get it to be somewhat even. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. So I know it's worked because I've done one, so I'm going to do the other one. I'm going to put a clip in this end just to try and make sure it stays together. So again, we don't want to go onto the zipper tape because we'll be able to see that after. So I am going to backstitch, but I'm going to try and stay on the faux leather. All right, so I ended up using, I have some very old Beacon Fabri-Tac glue I ended up using and just putting it right along the seam that I had stitched before. So this, my basting seam, I put it right along that and then clipped it all into place. All right, now we turn the zipper panel piece right side out, and we're going to clip it matching these ends and matching the raw edges. I need my clips again, so I'm going to clip it there, and I'm just gently pulling the coils away from the faux leather. And I don't know if we're supposed to take that end off or not. No, it seems to be okay. I'll do a little bit of that when I'm top stitching. And I'll do the same for the other one, but after. I'm going to swap out my, put my regular foot back on to continue with this now. All right, I swapped out to my regular foot. Haven't put my zipper foot too far away because I'm going to be using it again later because we have a zipper pocket in this pattern. So I am going to start top stitching from this end. I'm going to come across, top stitch all the way, and again top stitch down this side, and then I am going to baste the rest of this together. It's all the same. It's all of number 5 stitch length. So switching it to a 5, it's just where you're doing it. It changes what you call it. So I'm doing 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And being that this will be hidden in the seam, I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. And while I'm coming down, I am gently pulling these apart. Right, there's one. I'm going to go ahead. We'll go ahead and repeat for the second one. One thing I forgot to mention, after you're done, check your edges, and if there's anything sticking out or hanging over, trim it off. You want the edges to be fairly even. I mean, if they're really off, then you have a problem, but that's not bad. All right, both of mine are done. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set these aside. All right, for the next step, you're going to need your pocket panels. There's 6 of them. So you'll need your B, your C, and your D. I'll show with the D one. So take my thing off. So what we're going to do, so right now, before I get going, these notches aren't going to stay. We're going to use them to line up these pockets on the exterior, front or back, whichever one you've decided to put it on. So for now, we're going to leave them there. I'm going to put my pieces right side together and grab some clips and clip along this top edge, the top curved edge. Make sure they're nice and lined up. And now we're going to sew this top edge only with this recommended seam allowance. And I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and the end of my seam. Sorry, I don't know if I said it. Put these right sides together. Your exterior and your lining, pocket lining, right sides together. And I'm doing a 3.5 stitch length. And if it helps to keep them lined up, you can put a few more clips around. My waterproof canvas is quite slippery, so it's already sliding on me. All right, now I'm going to grab I have pinking shears. If you don't have pinking shears, use your scissors. We're going to notch out this curve. So I'm just going to take off about 1/8 of an inch. There's not a huge seam allowance here, so I don't have to take off a lot, but it helps. Even if you don't have a big seam, it really does help curves if you take some of the extra away. There we go. I'm going to take my clips out, not put them very far, and now I'm going to turn it right side out, flip it to the right side. So trying to press my seam open as much as I can, and I'm going to line up the outside edges too, because they are exactly the same size, so this should line up as well. And I'm going to clip both along the seam that we just sewed and around the outside. So once you've got the seam, I'm going to go and take this and press it. I'm going to put a couple more clips in. Go take it to my iron and press it. I'm going to do exactly that same thing for the other two pockets. Then I'm gonna steam them all, iron them all, and then we'll come back. All right, I'm back from the iron, and I only needed to iron this one because I forgot. These are vinyl, so I'm not ironing vinyl. But I do want to mention that I did these ones slightly differently. I put the slippery lining stuff on the bottom in the feed dogs when I was pulling it through, like so the feed dogs would help pull it through and keep it even. So it was easier to keep it from slipping by putting the vinyl on the top and the lining waterproof canvas slippery stuff on the bottom, although this faux leather is slippery too. So anyways, I've ironed it. Now I'm going to top stitch it and then baste around the edges. All right, so I've got it set at a 5-stitch length. I'm going to start at this top corner and I'm going to top stitch around the nice curve, and then I'm going to baste around the rest of it. And when I'm basting, I'm going to come up straight up this side, pretending like the triangle isn't there, because it's going to get cut off, so I don't want to stitch. I'm not stitching on it. I'm going to stitch right past it. All right, so I finished that curve because I'm not sure how much of it's going to be exposed. So I top stitched that anyways. But now I'm going to, I think I'm going to come straight down here and baste. I'm just going to trim off some of these little sticky outy bits. So there we've got all 3 pockets are made up. And I believe it's time to move on to attaching them to the pattern piece A, the exterior. All right, so I jumped the gun a little bit. The next step is to actually line everything up with these triangles for the pockets. So you've got your D, C, and B, pattern piece B, C, and D. And now we're going to go around and we're going to baste all of them together. So I'm still on my 5-stitch length. I'm going to start in the top corner, and we're going to have varying thicknesses. So I'm going to, where did I put it? I'm going to grab my little piece of fabric in case I need help getting up onto some of these steps. And I'm going to just take my time and baste around the outside. All right, so I think I tried to take a smidge more than 1/8 of an inch because like in some places I didn't catch, but that's fine. That will get caught when we put the frame around this piece on the exterior. So as I was going around, I was trying to smooth things out, get things into place, have a nice clean finish. We are going to add this combined pocket piece now to the exterior lining. Now on the the exterior panel. On the exterior panel pattern piece, there are some dots that you need to transfer to try and make sure that you get these things lined up. So we want to have the same distance. We want it to be the same distance away all the way around, and I may have to show you here and then take it to my table and try and line it up properly because I don't want it to be off. I want it to be nice and centered. So I'm going to try and center this point with this dot. And grab a clip and just clip it. Look for this dot and this point, and I'm going to clip them. And then I look for the other one over here. So there's another one over here, and it should match up with this point of this triangle. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go off camera for a minute. All right, I believe I have it lined up. I've also taken my silver marking pen and marked around this edge. So there is a certain distance it needs to be in. I have marked that with the silver marking pen. So now I'm going to try and stitch, baste it on. I'm going to, let's see, I don't know if that's going to be in the way or not. Maybe better up there. So I'm going to try and baste it on, starting in this corner. And again, 5 stitch length, it's still on the basting because we just basted these 3 pieces together, these 3 pockets together. And I am going to back stitch. And I'm hoping to keep it all centered over the layers and everything. I'm going to try and follow my stitch line from before. There we go. Pockets are now basted on. We can go ahead and trim off these notches. They're quite thick, so I'm thinking I'm going to need to do this off camera. But all I'm going to do is trim them off right in line with this side here, so that there is the distance we're supposed to have away from the edge is there and there and there. Now the other thing, I put my bag label on, not thinking that with the waves it might not look right, but it'll have to do now because it's on. So just think about it. If you have a square or rectangle logo and you want to put it somewhere, it might be better on here. I don't know. It depends on where you want it. I thought I'd put it up here to keep it out of the way. But anyways, so I'm going to cut these off and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, all cut off. And before we set this aside, I just wanted to show you, I did not try and cut it all at once. I actually pulled this back and then did 2 pieces at a time. So I did basically 1 pocket at a time. So I did this pocket with its lining, this one in its lining, and then the back one with its lining. I did that all the way around. I did not try and go all at once because I probably would have cut the panel I wasn't supposed to cut. Anyways, we'll put this aside and we're going to move on now. All right, trying to grab your exterior frame, pattern piece E, and we should have 1 cut from our exterior fabric, which I have in my faux leather, and 1 cut from your facing fabric. And we are going to put these 2 together. Now, as some of the testers have found, it can be a little difficult to work with with 2 pieces with the center cut out. So an option is, if you want, you can do this next part with the center still attached to the lighter lining piece. So before cutting it out, cutting the center part out, you would just use this full piece and we'll flip it over, stitch around. We're going to cut out, including this, we'll cut everything out together then. But I've already cut mine out, so I'm going to go ahead and work with my 2 pattern, like the 2 pieces already cut out. So with my faux leather, right sides up, I'm going to take my facing piece and put it right side down, trying to match up all of we're going to stitch the inside curve. So trying to get it all lined up, grab a couple clips, and I'm going to clip. Doesn't really matter. We are stitching this side, the inside, so want to make sure it stays lined up. It doesn't, in the end, we are probably going to take this back a bit, so it doesn't really matter if it's perfectly matched on the other edge, but we do want it pretty well lined up on the inside. So this piece across the top that I'm clipping now is called a bridge strap, and it's there right now to try and keep things from getting skewed. So we're going to end up cutting that off after, but it's there to try and keep it, yeah, as I said, keep it from getting skewed while we're stitching it. So I'm just going to put, this wants to pull in, so I'm just going to put a clip over here to try and hold it, and one over on the other side. All right, so now I'm going to turn around and stitch around, starting at the top here with the recommended seam allowance, and you can draw in your seam allowance if that makes it easier. Just put a ruler down and draw where your stitch line is at the top, if that helps. Yeah, so we're going to turn around and sew it up with a joining stitch length. And right, so back at the machine, I actually flipped all my clips around because it'll be easier to stitch with the cotton, my uninterfaced cotton, down against my feed dogs. So if you were leaving the center part in, it would also make sense to do it this way. Then you can see the edge that you're stitching along, and it doesn't matter if there's the extra center part of the facing is there. So I went ahead and I have marked my distance away from this edge on both sides, so basically my seam allowance. And now I'm going to start stitching. So I want that there. All right, so I'm going to change it to a 3.5 stitch length, which is my joining stitch. Line up my needle right along this line, and I am going to stitch with it falling off my table. I'm going to stitch with that seam allowance all the way down, around, and back up the other side. And a back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. Okay, so there we have it all stitched up. So now we want to take our scissors and we're going to cut this piece off. So I've got my scissors and I'm just going to cut from this corner straight up to the top, keeping that seam allowance that we drew in before. And now we want to fold this, fold this back to the back. You can understitch if you think that'll help. Understitching generally helps. Keep linings and stuff on the inside so you don't see it on the outside. So yeah, you can do that. Press it I have faux leather, so I won't be pressing it. I'll just be folding it to the back, and I'm going to clip it as I go. So you don't need to watch me clip it. I'll do that off screen. Basically just pulling that out and folding it back to the back. There's going to be some extra. We're going to cut off some of that, but for now just get it folded all the way around to the other side. So I'll do that off camera. All right, I want to mention a couple things before moving on. First thing, when you are stitching the facing piece to the exterior piece for the frame, make sure you're using the correct seam allowance. So if you could figure out what I use, don't use that. Mine was too wide. So make sure you read the seam allowance that's specified in the pattern. The second thing is it also suggests to use double-sided tape along on the inside. So when you're pulling the fabric back, you pull it back and stick it down onto the double-sided tape. And that just helps keep it. I've also put I'm using Wash Away Wonder Tape because my machine doesn't like leather tape and I don't want to risk getting it on the needle. So I'm using Wash Away Wonder Tape and clips. The last thing that I want to suggest is when you are folding your facing back towards the back, you take it in chunks. So don't start at one side and then move all the way around. There's a good chance that you could end up warping your uninterfaced facing piece. So what I do is I go down a little bit, I fold it back the right amount. So I'm trying to fold it back so I have a little bit of the exterior, the faux leather showing. And I'll put a clip in it, and then I come back in here, push that up and pull it down. So I'm trying to pull it straight back. I don't want to by accident pull it over. And if you go along and pick another spot, like you can go to the other end and work your way back. That part doesn't really matter. It's just if you start at one end and keep going all the way around, you can end up with your uninterfaced facing piece being off a little bit. So then I'll come to the center, fold that over in between. I do the same thing for straps, and you'll probably see that a little bit later when we do the crossbody strap and the handles. So I'm just going to finish this off and then we'll top stitch. Now that we've got this already turned out the way we want it, we're ready to top stitch it onto the bag itself. We want these edges, I'm just going to clean up my threads here. We want the top edge to match up here. Actually, I'm going to quickly trim down some of my facing because it's sticking out. So I'll take off right up to where I put the double-sided tape. All right, now that I've got it trimmed down, I'm going to place the top edges, line up the top edges and the sides of this panel all the way along. So I'm going to put clips in. I might just take out the clips I had and then go to the other side and clip it to the top, lining up the top edge and the side of the frame piece, and do this all the way around. Now that we've got this attached, you can stick double-sided tape underneath if you want. I want to make sure that it's covering up my basting lines from when we basted all these pieces together. So I may stick a couple clips in just to make sure that it covers everything. And now we're going to go around and we're going to top stitch all the way around this inside frame piece. So I'll move around to the machine and we'll go ahead with that. So I'm going to set my stitch length to a 5 because it's a top stitch. And I'm going to go really slow, especially with where the hardware is, and I want to make sure that I'm covering up all of my prior stitching. And I will backstitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. So I've got a little bit of a hump to get up, so I'm going to take the fabric that I got with my machine, use it as a hump jumper to try and get up on top of these. Alright, so I have slipped off the edge. I'll pull it out and show you. So right here, I have slipped right off the edge of this. So yeah, I'm going to go back and take out some of the stitches, because you can see on the back where I have veered from. These are the stitch lines, the basting stitch I had before, so I have gone off. Now I've got to pick those out, get it back on top of the panel here and try again. I think I'm going to try a little bit of either glue or double-sided tape to try and keep it up there. So when you have a lot of layers, this can be kind of difficult. And it looks like I might, yeah, I've come off there as well. So I think I'll just take the seam right out and try it again. All right, so I went back and I took all my stitches out and ran glue all the way along my stitch lines that were there before, my basting stitches for when I basted my panels together and to the exterior panel A. So I'm hoping that this will allow me, since I've glued it and I've tried to let it set, that it won't pull off again. So let's give this a try. And so I'm at a 5 stitch length still. I'm going to start and go all the way around, top stitching this in place. And I apologize ahead of time if I do get my head in the way. I'm trying to manage everything with it falling off my table because it gets heavy and then it pulls. So trying not to get in the way, but I apologize if I do. My faux leather's kind of stretchy too, so it's wanting to stretch off the edge. So I'm trying to hold it in place with my stiletto as well. Alright, and there we go. It's top stitched on. Now that we've got that top stitched on, we're just going to run a basting stitch around the outside edge of this panel. So stick with your 5 stitch length, and then, yeah, so I'll back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. And we're just basting these together so that this creates one solid piece. All right, there we go. I caught most of it. There's some that I didn't, but it's still all one piece. So we can set this aside for now, and we're gonna move on to the next step. All right, we're gonna work on the double welt pockets now. So to start with, we're gonna grab our double welts. This is pattern piece L. You should have 2 of them, and mine are interfaced with a woven interfacing. I have already drawn the line and the marks according to the instructions. And what we're going to do is we are going to do a regular joining stitch here. We are just going to baste with a really long stitch length in here, and then we are going to stitch in here with a joining. And we're going to back tack at these spots, because eventually this basting line will be taken out. So we want to make sure that we've back stitched well on these lines, and we also want to make sure that we don't go over the line. So I'm just going to start from one end. I've got my pieces right side together, and I've lined them up. So I'm just going to start on the one end and sew across to the other. So my joining stitch, I've got 3.5. Needle down on the line. I'm going to back stitch and right down on that line, and then back stitching. And now I'm going to change it to a really long stitch length. I'm actually putting it on a 7. It doesn't do whatever you can do. I could go up to a 9, but I'm just going to do a 7. Even a 5 probably would be easy to take out. And we want to end right on this point. So if you have to shorten your stitch length, there we go. Maneuver your needle into place, back stitch, and back stitch. All right, I've brought over my iron so that we can press everything nicely. So now what we want to do, we want to open up the layers and pull them back on themselves like that. Keep your edges even. You can finger press if you want. I'm going to actually press it with, my little iron. Give it some steam. And there we go. And now it should be like this. So your piece where we stitched is down in here. We opened it up, folded these pieces back on themselves. So now our seam is right in the center. We're going to go around and we're going to baste all these edges around. So I'm going to put it on a 5 stitch length for me. And I'll back tack at the beginning, or back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. There's our double welts. We will add this later, so we can set it aside for now. Now we'll be working with pattern pieces, your zipper pocket main pattern piece M and zipper pocket top K. So I'll take those off, and we're going to be adding the zipper in between. So I'm going to put my M aside for a minute. If you have a standard, like a regular store-bought zipper, you need to cut it down to a certain length as specified in the instructions. If you have a zipper pull on your tape already, follow the directions as to which direction the zipper slider pull is facing. I don't have it on yet. I will put it on after, and it just makes it a little easier. I am going to take my pattern piece K, put it right side down, and then I'm going to take my zipper and place it right side down as well on top of the pattern piece K at the bottom, along the bottom long edge of the piece. I'm going to grab a couple clips and clip it into place. And now I am going to stitch this on the bottom here with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm going to change to 3.5 stitch length. So this may look funny because we've got them right sides together. When you fold this up, you've got your coils actually on the back side, but that is correct because we want the pattern of the fabric on the inside of the pocket, but the coils face out. So yes, that is the way we want to have it. So now I'm just going to, I've cut my zipper longer than was in the pattern just because I like to have extra on either side. In case, you know, if I cut wrong and it's too short, this way I can just cut it down after. It does waste a little zipper tape, but it's fine. All right, so now we've got that. We're going to flip. So I'm going to flip this piece up. So I'll put the zipper tape facing up and with the pattern piece K on top, and I'm going to just fold the pattern piece K away from the zipper. You can run it under an iron if that helps. Just press it a bit. A little bit of steam. It doesn't hurt to iron your zipper. All right, now we are going to take our pattern piece M, so our main pattern piece, figure out which side is up and which side's down. I want it down here. So if you have directional print, you need to kind of figure out where you're going to put your zipper. So the zipper will be at the top of this pocket, like the zipper will run along this side up here. So looking at it, when I open up my pocket, what do I want to see? So I believe this is correct. I want to see it this direction. So I will take the top edge here and put it down. And then I am going to take my other piece with, or my zipper with the other piece attached, and I'm going to line it up, matching the edges of the zipper pocket pieces. And I will clip along this edge. And again, we are going to stitch it on with the suggested seam allowance. Clean up your threads, and we're going to do the same thing. Put our zipper with our zipper facing up, and then I'm going to pull pattern piece M away from the zipper, keeping the zipper tape flat, and fold it back like that. Again, if you need to iron it to get a nice crisp line, go ahead, iron it. Oops, wrong one. Well, there we go. So now I'm going to go through and I am going to top stitch, because that will help keep the zipper tape and the seam allowances going in the correct direction. So top stitching length, I've got stitch length of 5. I'll back tack in the beginning and the end of the seam, and I will do both. All right, there we go. Zipper is in. Now we can set this aside for a minute and move on to the next step. All right, for this next step, we are going to need our lining panels, both of them, which is pattern piece F, our double welt pocket facing, which is pattern piece double J, and our zipper pocket facing, which is pattern piece J. So we are going to be adding the facings to the linings, one for each of the welt and zipper pockets. And yeah, so I've already got on the back of my welt pocket facing, and my zipper pocket facing, I have already marked my zipper boxes. Mine is slightly larger than what's in the pattern. So the way I prefer this, I prefer a 1/2 inch when I'm working with a number 5 zipper. I prefer a 1/2 inch opening. So what I ended up doing was folding the piece in half, marking the halfway point, drawing a line. I did that in an erasable air erasing pen, and then I marked a 1/4 inch on each side of that center line. That's how I came up with mine. But if you prefer the 3/8 of an inch, which is what's in the pattern, if you're using a smaller zipper like a number 3 zipper, then go with the 3/8. If you're using a 5 and like the larger size, then you can go ahead and do what I did, line down the center and then create the box from there. I did follow the measurements in from the edge so that I have the right size opening. Yeah, I've also drawn on my pattern piece, my lining pattern piece. I've also drawn the lines so far down, centered, and this is where we're going to center our facing piece. One thing I need to do before I can center it is figure out the center of the facing. So I'm just going to fold it in half, take one of my pens. This is actually a heat erasing. It's a friction pen, and I'm just going to draw a line along the edge there. So this is the line, the center of my, I'm going to grab a ruler so I can get it nicely lined up. There we go. So now I can I'll remove one of the lining panels and I'll put the other facing piece away. And I'm going to line up the top edge of the facing piece and the center line of the facing piece right there, like that. I think it's pretty centered. And now I'm going to stitch down either side of this zipper box. I'm going to use a joining stitch length, and I'm going to start right in the corner, and then I'm going to back stitch, come down here, right to the end of that, back stitch, do the same for the other side, and then we'll cut this open. I've got mine on a 3.5 stitch length. Alright, now that we've got that stitched, I am going to fold my piece in half. Doesn't matter if it's exactly half. And I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to snip into it. So now I'm going to cut down the center, grab a pen here, and approximately 1/2 inch away. I'm going to cut all the way down the center, and then 1/2 inch away I could measure it, 1/2 to 3/4. It's better if you have more than less on these ends, the little triangles. So now I'm just going to stitch all the way down, or cut all the way down, and then I will cut these into these corners. And I want to do that, cut into the corners without actually cutting the stitches. I'm just going to finger press for now. Finger press this up, finger press this down, and even on the ends, I'm going to finger press it. Going to push it through the opening, pull it to the back, and I want the edges to be either very even or with a slight rounding of the exterior of the lining fabric and the facing all the way in to the back. So I'm just going to clip it where I want it. That's for the center. I'll do all the way along both sides and even pull out these on the ends. Give it a little press. Some waterproof canvas is okay to press. Some of it warps. This isn't OtterTex. OtterTex is pretty good at being ironed. This is another one that I get from a supplier up here in Canada, and Mimi Fabrics, and I like that it's not overly stiff. I like that I can get it in Canada, and she has great colors. So I'm really hoping she keeps carrying it. So, because I can iron it, it's nice to work with. Anyway, so there we go. We've got a nice opening. Go ahead and do the same for the other piece, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, now we're going to move on and add our lining, our zipper pocket to one of the exterior one of the lining panels. So before I start, I want to put my zipper slider on for the pocket. So I hope you can see this. So before I open the zipper, I like to take a look at how the coils are set up, because they alternate. That's what makes the zipper close. And I want to make sure I get it closing nice and straight. So I take a look. I've got on the right and then left, right, left, right, left. It's how it goes on mine. So I want to make sure after I've separated the sides, I'm going to take my zipper slider and put it on the one side. I tend to put it on the side that was the higher one that started first, and then I put this on, and I will pull. I don't know if you saw that. I kind of pulled it up so that this is sitting pretty straight along the zipper line. So, and then I push it on. Oh, and then I push it on. Oh, it popped there, and then pull it down, and I take a look at the coils, and I have it done exactly as I wanted it. So that should keep the zipper from being bulging any more on one side than the other. So if you take a look, they're pretty even. So that'll be pretty even. I'm going to stick it in the center, and I'm going to put it down on my table. I'll grab my lining piece, and I am going to try and center it over this panel here, over the zipper panel. So our facing piece for the zipper is as wide as the zipper pocket itself. So if we line up the edges, then we're pretty much getting it centered in this zipper box. All right, keep my zipper slider out of the way. I'm going to put it all under my needle. I'm going to set it so that my presser foot is just down from my slider, and I'm going to do 5-stitch length, needle down, and then I will back tack once. You don't have to. You can leave your threads long, pull them through, and tie them off. I don't bother with that. This works fine for me. So come down to the end, needle down, turn, pivot, come down across the teeth, and if you need help, use a hump jumper or a piece of fabric or something to get up over the teeth. Oh, I'm good. And then that should be good. Pivot again and come up this side. Once I'm close enough to my zipper slider, I'm going to leave my needle down. I have an automatic needle setter, so mine automatically stops with it down. But you want to make sure before you move anything under, you've got your needle down. Lift my presser foot and move the slider to the other end. I'll continue around, cross this, back tag, and then pull it out. You also want to make sure that you don't get your lining or your pocket lining in your stitches here. There we go. That zipper pocket is in. So now I'm going to put it face down. I'm going to fold up the bottom edge of this to match the top, along the top here. I'm going to stitch along the top with the recommended seam allowance. I'm going to change to a 3.5 stitch length because I want it to be a joining stitch, back stitch. I'm going to flip it over again, smooth everything out, finger press the bottom here, grab my scissors, and I am going to open this pocket. I'm going to cut it open because we are going to turn through a hole in the bottom of the lining, and then we're going to close the hole through the pocket. All right, so now we're going to sew up the sides. So I'm going to move my slider to the center just so it's not in the way. Put a couple clips, and then I'm going to flip it over. So I've found that if I fold up the bottom here, that I end up with a nicer bottom. It makes it easier for me to close the bottom of the pocket, get a nice seam at the bottom. So I'm going to fold it up. I'm going to stitch over it this way. I'm going to stitch all the way up this side, and then I'll come down the other side, folding this up when I get there. And again, folding this up to match the other side. Also, while I'm here, going to take some scissors, cut off the extra, take my lighter, and I'm going to melt the ends of the zipper. We don't want it fraying, and melting it helps. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to grab the bottom of the pocket, put our fingers in one side, and then pull them apart, and it folds this edge up. And I'm going to finger press it, and then I'm just going to quickly press it a bit with the iron, just because I can. This is if you have something in the pocket that you can't iron, then you just leave it, but I can iron it, so I'm going to iron. There we go. There we have the zipper pocket installed. Now we need to grab our other lining panel and the welts that we worked on before. I believe this is J and this is L. I have folded mine in half, found the center, and marked it with an air erasing pen. I don't know if you can get there, you can see the line. Make sure if you do mark this, it's in something that will come off, because you'll be able to see this. Now we want to take this panel and put it on the back, add it to the back. I'm going to flip it over, and I want to line up the welt in the center of the pocket, both horizontally and vertically. So I want to make sure that the seam here is going like right down the center. This needs to come over a bit, and that it's sitting in the center of the pocket. You can check again underneath, they should be the same width. So the welts should be as wide as the facing. And then I'm going to start in the, kind of like I did for the zipper, in the center, and work my way around. And again, I'm going to put it on a 5-stitch length. So I'm going to start in the center, so I know I've got this, it's centered here. And I'm just going to make sure that I keep this center line of the welt in the center of the pocket. And I will backstitch. Turn it and it moves on you, make sure you go back and recenter it. Right, now we want to grab our double welt pocket main panel, which is letters MM, and we're going to, I want to figure out what direction, if there's a direction, what direction I want this in. I think this is the direction. So when it's in here, I want to see, so that'll be upside down. So when it's inside the bag, I want to, when I open up the pocket, I want to see this right side up. So I believe that this is the bottom. So I want to put it, flip both panels over, and I want to put it here. Now, if it makes it easier, I'm just going to grab a couple pins. I'm going to pin it. If it doesn't matter, then you can keep going. I'm going to just put a couple pins in it, and I'm going to, so we'd stitch it on, we'd fold it back, and then this gets folded up. So I'm just going to do this, have a look, and yes, my flowers are the right side up. So yeah, the bottom of the panel, and it goes, so flip your lining panel over, put the bottom of this pocket along the bottom edge of the double welt, with the remainder of the pocket going up. I'm going to pull this, so just grab the two and flip the rest of the pocket out of the way. Switch to a 3.5 stitch length, and I'm going to stitch with the recommended seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and the end of the seam. Now I'm going to take the panel and pull it back on itself. So I want the seam allowance going down towards the pocket panel. I'm going to just finger press it. Yeah, I don't think I need to do any more than that. Finger press it, and now I'm going to top stitch this down. So 5 stitch lengths. Make sure that everything else other than the welts and the pocket lining piece, everything else is out of the way. So I've got a 5 stitch length. Okay, and then we're going to take the bottom of this panel and we are going to flip it up so that it matches up with the top of the double welt piece. I'm going to grab a couple clips. One's probably okay. I'm going to flip it over so that, and I'm moving my lining panel out of the way. Flip it over so we just have the double welt piece and the pocket lining piece exposed, and we're going to stitch across the top with the recommended seam allowance, 3.5 stitch length. I guess the instructions suggest stitching all the way around that. I just noticed. So to stitch all the way around, you would press this all out and stitch up, across, and down. I missed that, so I'm just going to be, I've already got the top in line, so I'm going to press the bottom, get a nice crisp edge along the bottom so that it doesn't stick out. And now I'm just going to sew up either side. All right, and now we want to take, I'm going to switch it from my stiletto to my seam ripper, and I'm going to take out the stitches in the center. So I'll just find a spot on one side, and then I'm going to take out a stitch. I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to put the little red ball thing down in. It keeps it from actually, so this could dig right into my pocket lining. If you use the little ball part down and go along, okay, come on, cut. Then you can cut your stitches without worrying about digging in to your fabric below. There we go. Get rid of all the little threads, and there we have our welt pocket. I still have some threads to get rid of, but it is installed. We can clean it up later and move on to the next step. Moving on to joining all of the panels and pieces together. So we're going to need both exterior panels, all the lining both the lining panels and our zipper panel. So I've gone through already and marked center, top, and bottom. We definitely need center top. Not 100% sure if we need center bottom of all of the panels and lining and exterior. And I've also marked halfway. I folded these in half, and I marked the halfway point for the zipper panel, not including the extra tape. So now I'm going to set, so we're going to work on the front first, and I'm going to put my welt pocket with the front, and I'm going to put, so with the back, I want my zipper pocket towards the back. And the other thing I need to look at is what direction I want my bag to close in. So when we put when I close my zipper, I want it closing, personal opinion, I want it closing to the right or to the left. So I'm going to have the spot where it closes on the left, like that. This is the way I want it to close. So now I'm going to take this panel and put it face down, matching the center notches. Going to put a clip in it for now. And then I can take, I know then this piece goes with the other. So it's going to be opposite, but that's fine because this is the outside of the bag. If you flip it around, This is the back side of the bag, and again, like that, we want it closing on that side. So this is the piece we need to go on the back. I'm going to take these and put them aside for now, and we're going to work with this. So I've got it clipped in one spot. I'm going to clip it all the way along the top of the exterior. A little difficult when it wants to slide off my table. So anyways, I've got it on there. I'm going to baste it on with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I've got it already on a 5 stitch length. Before I stitch it on, I did take it off for a minute because when I folded to find the center, I actually matched up the sides. But if you can see here, that doesn't mean the centers were matched. So I want this panel, the zipper panel, centered between the edges here. So I needed to fold those together, matching those, then find the center, and then I could put the panel down. So then it's centered between the frame, the edges of the frame. So now I'm going to stitch it on. Again, 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I'm going to take it slow because I've got hardware here that's kind of bulky. That's on. Now I'm going to take my lining panel and I'm going to put them right sides together. And again, I'm going to match up the notches and match it up all the way along this edge. So I'm going to clip that. And now I'm going to stitch it together with the full recommended seam allowance. So I've got to change my stitch length to a 3.5. And actually, I think I'm going to flip this the other way around and stitch it with the slippery stuff on the bottom. All right, so there. I can also this way see my stitch line from before, so I know that I've got my basting stitches. I've stitched well inside so I don't see my basting stitches. All right, so needle down. Holding the zipper, it's okay right now, but if it tends to want to flop in the way, make sure you keep the zipper out of the way. And back stitch the beginning and the end of the seam, and be careful around your hardware. Make sure it's out of the way. Alright, so now I am going to do the same thing for the other side. So I'll grab my other panels and do exactly the same thing to the other side. I'll do it off camera. And then we will join the whole bag together. Right. Now that we've got the exterior and lining joined for both pieces, we want to join the two groups together. So what I've done already is I've brought the tail of my zipper in and clipped it to the rest of the zipper tape so that it doesn't get in the seams. I've done that for both parts. So now we're going to flip the two together. We're going to sandwich them like this, and I'm going to start by matching the seam allowances here, and I'm going to push them both. I'm going to push them both up towards the lining. So match up your side seams, like where we joined the lining and the exterior. We're going to join those seam lines, and I'm going to put a clip in it. And then I'll clip on a couple on either side, just to try and hold it so it doesn't wiggle out on me and not be lined up anymore. And then I'll flip to the other side and do the same thing, pushing the seam allowances up or towards the lining. And I will continue clipping all the way around. Use as many clips as you're comfortable with. I like using them so it doesn't move on me as much. I cut out the notches down at the bottom, so I'm also hoping that they line up, because then I've got them pretty even. I'm going to sew it with the bulkier side. This is the bulkier side. I'm going to sew with it up. This is a lot more flat, so I'm just flipping my clips. Doesn't matter as much for the lining, but yeah. And the other thing I'm going to do while I've got it here, I will clip the bottom of the lining. I'm also going to mark the opening. So I'm going to start and stop about here on the lining. And I'm going to leave this section open so that I can turn it through the bottom of the lining, and then we'll close this part through the pocket. So there's where I'm going to stop. All right, so I'm going to flip this over. I guess I should have made the marks on the other side then. So I'm going to start about on this one. Also going to clip my pocket up out of the way so it doesn't get stitched by accident. I'll do it for both. Okay, I'm going to start down here, a back stitch. I may even come in at the 90 degrees and then back stitch, come all the way around and finish over there. But here we go, sewing it up with the recommended seam allowance. And I'm on a 3.5 stitch length. So take your time, making sure to keep things all smoothed out and that nothing is in the way, and we'll meet you on the other side. And before I get too far, I want to say that it's an even, consistent seam allowance all the way around. So sometimes with bags we take off more, or we make it a bigger seam allowance for the lining. It's already been, the pattern pieces have already been adjusted. So yeah, just keep the same seam allowance all the way around. Make sure your seams are pointing in the correct direction. All right, we've got it all stitched up. I'm going to take off the clips here at the bottom, and I can take them off at the pockets as well. And we're going to use either, if you've got pinking shears, use your pinking shears, or around some of the tighter curves, like in here, you might want to cut some notches. I'm going to use my pinking shears, and I'm going to cut it down so there's only about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're not going to cut in between, like in the opening. We're not going to cut across the opening. We are only going to go from opening all the way around the other side to opening there. All right, so I'll do this and speed it up, and then we can, I think we can turn the bag after this. All right, there we go. I had some issues along the side. It was just a little thick, but it's okay. I've got it all trimmed down. We should be good. So now I'm going to stick my hand in, grab the other end, push it into my hand, and start to pull the exterior into the lining. All right, got it into the lining. Now I'm going to pull it out the hole at the bottom. All right, there we go. Check around, make sure that it looks okay. I'm going to put my hand in between the two lining panels and push out that seam. There we go, and then do the same for the lining. Push out that seam. All right, there we go. Can probably take this off now. And now I'm going to start, I'm going to just start on the front, and I'm going to push the lining part away, basically like when we put the zipper in and we tug a little on the coils to get it out. I'm going to do basically the same thing, pulling the zipper panel, so tuck that inside, pulling the zipper panel out from the seam so that it's all out. I'm going to put a couple clips in here. They're a little thick, so I may end up squishing them. But I want the zipper panel out from the seam. So we're preparing it. We're going to turn it so that we've got all the lining inside nicely, and then we're going to top stitch around the edge. So I'm also going to, when I'm top stitching, I'm going to turn this inside out. There we go. Oh, look at those pockets. Neat. So anyways, I'm going to turn it inside out because I'm not going to use my cylinder arm as a cylinder arm. I'm doing this so that I can sew it like it would be on a flatbed machine. But if you have a cylinder arm or if you have a free arm on your machine, I would use that to top stitch. So anyways, all right, inside out, smoothing out this seam for both the front and the back. Ooh, welt pocket. All right, I'm ready to top stitch. Hopefully this angle works. I've got it on a 5 stitch length, and I am going to try and start in the seam so I can possibly hide it in the seam. So I'm going to keep my tails long. I'm not going to back stitch. We'll see how it goes. And yeah, so needle down and take it slow, especially around your hardware. And remember to tug on this slightly, like don't reef on it, but just tug, pull it out so that it's nice and even. And here we go. All right, got it top stitched. I'm going to pull my threads through and tie them off and finish off, and that'll finish off the top stitching seam. All right, we're ready to turn our bag right side out. So I'm just going to reach in, find the bottom of the bag, push it into my hand again, and start pulling it through. It helps separate the lining and the exterior. And then tuck the lining in. Smooth out all your pockets and everything. That one's smooth, lining smooth. That one's smooth. All right, so now, hopefully we can see. Now I'm going to open up my zipper pocket all the way, reach in and pull out the pocket, pull the lining of the pocket all the way out. I'm going to stick my hand back in. I'm going to grab the 2 unsewn ends of the lining and pull it through the pocket. Going to pull each where I stopped and started stitching. I'm going to pull them out to the side, and then I'm just going to put a couple clips in it. You probably don't have to. If you're experienced, you don't need to, but I've got to shift around from here over to my machine. All right, let's sew up the lining. I have it set on a 3.5 stitch length, and we are going to use the original seam allowance. We have cut some off here, but we're going to use the original seam allowance on this to close up the bottom of the bag. So needle down where we ended, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. Go all the way around to the other side. I'm just going to grab my pinking shears and I'm going to trim down this seam allowance. If you don't have pinking shears, again, take your scissors and notch this out, because this is a curve, so it will sit nicer if you've taken some of the extra fabric out. All right, pull that back into the bag, tuck it down, and now we're going to close up this seam, the pocket. And again, if you feel like you need to put clips in, I'm going to, because it's getting heavy and it's pulling off my table, so this just helps make sure it stays even. All right, and now I'm just going to close it with still the 3.5 seam allowance, because I want to make sure it stays closed. But I'm only going to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Take my lighter, melt the ends of the thread. And I'm going to pop the zippered pocket back in. Poking out the corners as I can. Alright, push the lining back in. I can zip up the pocket now, doesn't need to be open. Right, back at the table, I want to put my, I'm going to put my zipper slider on the end of the zipper. So I'm going to try and match up the coils so that I can try and find the end. Some people mark, I didn't even think of it at the time, some people will mark the zipper to know where things are supposed to line up. It's just once you're in, you've sewn it into a panel, they may not. Like I had these things perfectly matched before, it may not perfectly match now. So I'm going to keep clipping, come out to the end and see where we are. So looking at this, they don't match up. It looks like I have like 2 coils on my right hand side and then it starts. So I'm going to try and put my zipper slider on. I'll pop it on the right side first, and then I'll pop the left in, and I want to try and keep that 2 coils on the right separation. So pop it, and I think I got it. Let's see if I do, because then I can tell by when it comes down to the end. It looks like it's sitting pretty well. So yeah, just because I had them cut nicely at the beginning doesn't mean once you get it in the zipper panel that it's going to actually match up, which is fine. So now I have that end. I need to clean that up. Just going to trim off the extra coil. Grab my lighter, melt my zipper end. Going to take the actual metal zipper end, and I'm going to fold my zipper back and then back on itself like that. So I've got overlapping in the center, and then bring the other side to overlap that. Hold it in place, and then I'm going to pop this zipper end on. It will flare out after, but that's fine. And then I will be taking, I don't know where my little screwdrivers are, just a sec. All right, found my screwdriver. So I've got my screwdriver. You can use the little eyeglass ones. I got this one from a local to me artisan, and I'll link his information in the description box below. That's where I got my stiletto and seam ripper from him as well. So I'm going to put that on the end, and then I will screw the little screw into the hole. Now this will probably come off after. I'll stick some glue in there and then put this back, and there we go. So you want it nice even on the end. There we go. So that's on. The last thing I need to put on are the handles. Time to work on our handles and our crossbody strap. So I've got my handles. I'm going to set them aside and start with the crossbody strap, and then we'll go to the handles. So there is 2 pieces to the crossbody strap. One is longer than the other, and it is also wider than the other, and that is by design. So don't be surprised if they are just like that. So I'm going to take the thinner one, and I've already marked my line down the center, and I'm already put on my double-sided tape. I use double-sided leather tape. It is quite sticky. I'm hoping that because we're going to put it it's in the center, and I'll be stitching down the sides, that I won't actually hit it with my machine. My machine does not like this sticky double-sided tape. So anyways, I'm going to start peeling the paper backing off of the tape, and I'm going to start in a bit and match up to the line. Since we are going to put one on top of the other, like wrong sides together, I don't have to leave a space in between. So I can butt it right up against one long side against the other one. I'm going to start in a bit because this way it just keeps it a little more even. There is a tendency if you start on one end and go straight down to the other that you could end up shifting the fabric or warping the fabric. So I'm just going to continue down the one side, and I will, yeah, I think I'll do, I could do both at the same time. It doesn't matter whether you go down one side and then back the other. It's whatever you're comfortable with. Some people are comfortable just to pinch it together and push it down. I'm not there yet, but you might be there. You might not. You might get there. You might not. It's okay. Everything's good. So I'm going to continue down, and I'm going to do both sides of this strap, and then I will move on to the longer, wider strap. So I'll speed up this part. All right, now we're going to put the straps together. So this being that the straps are two different lengths, and I know how long they are, I can figure out the difference between the two. And we're going to start, I've got the wider, longer one in front of me. And since I know the difference in the lengths, I'm going to split that difference in half and make a mark so far in from the end. And just I'm using my silver marking pen to mark it. I'll do the same on the other side. And now I'm going to take a little bit of double-sided tape. I'm taking a thinner, I used 1/4 inch before. I'm just going to use this slightly less than 1/4 inch, if I can find the end. And I'm going to put a strip down the center, starting at the line we just drew, because we're going to put this on top of this piece, starting at that line. So. All right, now I'm going to start taking the tape off of the long piece, or taking the backing of the tape off of the long piece. And I'm going to start placing the smaller, shorter piece in the center, perfectly lined up side to side and end to end, starting at the line that I drew. And we are putting, this is the wrong side of the strap, so we're putting wrong sides to wrong sides. So we have the nice right side facing out on both sides. So that's the right and that's the right. And I will continue down the strap. And there we go. We've got it all together. I'm going to set this aside for a couple minutes while we work on our handles, and then we will turn around and we will sew them both at the same time on the machine. So I've got my handles. There's, again, shorter ones and longer ones, but they're both the same width. So we're going to do two different styles. So the crossbody is going to be one way and the handles are going to be the other. So I'm going to take off. So I've already got my line down the center with some tape on it. So I've got those. The next thing we want to do is we're going to stitch the end. So I'm going to take one of my long straps and one of the short ones, and I am going to match up the short ends. Put them right sides together and match up the short ends. I'm going to take a couple clips, probably don't need that many, but we'll hold them for a bit. And then we'll come to the other side and clip the other short end. And do the same for the other handle. All right, there we go. We've got these handles ready to go. We're going to take both of them over to the machine and top stitch around these and sew these ends up. All right, we're going to start with the long crossbody strap, the one that has a little bit at the end, then it's double. Oh, it looks like I'm off a bit. Anyways, I'll fix this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it so that the top side, the long side, the longer piece is on the top, and then I'm going to just top stitch down one side and then back up the other side. So, all right, all fixed. So I'm going to put 5 stitch length because I want a top stitching, and then I'm just going to go 1/8 of an inch up and down, or down one side, up the other. And I want to make sure when I get to this part that I'm not bending this back when I go to stitch it. I want to keep it flat. So I have my stiletto here, and I will try and make sure that the under part gets caught properly. There we go. There's the crossbody strap. Now I'm just going to, I'm going to take the handles now, and I'm going to sew across each end with the recommended seam allowance. I'm going to change it to a 3.5 stitch length and back stitch at the beginning and the end of your seams. I'll do all 4 of them and then we'll move on. Now we want to work with our handles. So the first thing we want to do with the handles is finger press these seams that we just sewed. We're going to finger press them apart. I'm also going to grab some of my double-sided tape, and I've got 1/4 inch on, so I'll just continue with 1/4 inch. I'm going to cut a little bit extra, and I'm going to put it over the seam to try and hold it open. Don't really want it over top of the other double-sided tape that we have there, but I think it would still work. So I'll do the same on the other, with the other 3. And now I'm going to go and take the tape off, or the backing off the tape, all the way around. Well, do it for a bit, and then I want to take each of the long edges and fold them up to the line in the center, trying to keep everything straight. So I'll go along and do that and pull the tape off, or the backing off the tape as I go. If these little bits on the join are in the way, I'm just going to peel this back for a minute. If these are in the way, you can cut them on an angle to get the little ears out of the way. Then it won't stick out. I'm just putting some clips in here because I want to keep this as even as possible. The next step for the handles, we're going to actually sew all the way down the center, like on either side, sorry, 1/4 inch in from either side, but we're going to sew it around in a loop. So I'm going to start sewing at one of my seams. I'm going to leave my tails long, and I've got a 5 stitch length already set up. So yeah, we'll do it at a 1/4 inch and then fold it over, and then we'll do it at 1/8 inch. So they'll have the double seams as well to match the connectors. So I'm not going to backstitch. I'm just going to go all the way around and move over, or switch it around and go all the way around the other way. And then we'll move on to the next step. I've got my threads long, so I'm going to work on pulling on the back thread and popping through from the other side. Grab either my tweezers or my stiletto and pull it through. And what I'm doing with this is I want to tie it off. I want it to look clean on this side. So if I pull it through to this side, I tie them off, we're going to be folding these together like this. So I can hide these threads in the seam. So you don't need to watch me tie it off. I'll do that off camera. All tied off. Part of the reason I went and started in 2 different spots, there's not as many knots in the same location, but I also wanted to stitch. The light blue stuff was popping up and I didn't want it to pop up too far before I could actually get it stitched. So anyways, we want to fold it over on itself. So we will have the longer handle will wrap around, and you want to make sure that they're wrapping around approximately evenly. So you can match them up like that. You can mark it. Once you've got it, you clip it together unless you want to just hold it. I like to clip things there. So now we're going to stitch around with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm going to do all sides. Yeah, all the way around. So basically a big box. I'm not going to back stitch. I'm just going to sew all the way around. Okay, I changed my mind about backstitching. I only backstitched on the way back though, and I went over these stitches a bit. So I'm going to pull things through to the back if I can. These ones I can clip off right at the fabric. Pop these through, and then I'm going to just clean it up with my lighter. So I don't see anything there. And there we go. All right. So one of the suggestions in the pattern is to put double-sided tape down the center to keep them together while you're stitching them. I probably should have done that. I did use what are they called, clips, but you can use double-sided tape if that helps keep it even. All right, working with our crossbody strap, I've got it wrong side up, so the long piece, you can see the center seam, and the short piece is on top. You can see both pieces this way. I'm going to put the slider on one end. So I'll pick up the end that I want it on, and I want to put it over top. I want to wrap this over top of this bar. So I'm going to slip it on one side of the bar and bring it back down the other side of the bar. And now this one we need to tuck it under and then tuck it over again. And that will cover up the raw edge that's there. The raw edge of the smaller piece. So I'm just for now going to stick a clip in it. And I'm gonna put a rivet in there. So I'm just gonna take my, this is a heat erasing marker. So I'm just gonna take it and I'm going to put a mark right in the center there on the strap, and just to hold it. I'm gonna grab, I have both of my rivet presses here. I have one, this one here has the punch and a hole. This is to punch the hole, and this one, I don't know if you can see it, actually presses the caps of the rivets together. So I want to punch a hole, so I'm going to grab the one with the hole punch on it. Try and hold it steady, remove my clips, put the hole punch down where I want it, and push. And so it's got a hole. It didn't go all the way through because it's quite thick, but I can pull that part off. I'm going to just stick my clips back in for a second while I grab, hold that, I'm going to grab my rivets. So this is how I store my rivets, and I'm going to grab some medium. I'm going to grab a medium post and a medium cap. So these are double cap rivets, so there's two parts to it. There's the one with the post and the one with the cap. And we need to have both of those for these to work. So I'm going to put the one with the post. I like it going in from the exterior part. I don't think it matters, but that's just me, the way I do it. And I'm going to push it through the hole. And then I'm going to take the cap and pop it on the other side. And there was a little bit of resistance, and it didn't make the snap that it sometimes does, but it's on. I'm going to take my other rivet press and I'm going to set this rivet, trying not to get the rest of my hardware in the way. There we go. So I've set that rivet. All right, so now this side with the fold over is considered the wrong side. I'm going to put the wrong side up. I'm going to take one of my swivel hooks, and I want to, where the flat side is here, I want that against the wrong side of my strap, so it dangles off the end of it like that. So I'm going to pull it on. Now I'm going to take my strap wrong sides to wrong side, and I'm going to slip it up by the wrong side and slip it down on the right side. And then we end up with something like that, the loop. So I'm going to flip it back over so it's wrong side up again. I'm going to take my other swivel hook with the flat side against the wrong side, flat side of the swivel hook against the wrong side of the fabric, put it on, again dangling down, and then I'm going to fold it over and fold it over again to cover up that raw edge. Put a couple clips and do the same thing, set the rivet. And there we have the crossbody strap. Okay, so it's time now. We add the handles. I also forgot we'll hook our crossbody strap on after. So we're going to take one of the straps, one of the handles, sorry, and this is the wrong side of the handle. I am going to slip from the front, grab the O-ring, and from the front, so I've got the right side of the handle with the right side of the front of the bag. I'm going to slip the handle in up from the bottom, bring it over the ring, and then fold it back on itself. And then I'll put a clip in it. I'm gonna rivet these on. There's no way I'm getting my machine through this. I believe the instructions say to rivet it on anyways. So I want to keep it flat, so I've got the wrong side up. So right side together with the front, wrong side up. I'm going to curve the handle around, come up from the bottom, the pocket side of the ring, up, and then over and back on itself. And you want to have them approximately the same amount overhang. So I'll fold it over and kind of measure it out and then clip it, and I'll go back and make sure that the other side is the same. I'm going to do one. I have gone ahead and marked it about 1/2 inch down from the end here and tried to center it across the handle. So now I've got my hole punch here. So I'm going to try and punch a hole, get it centered. In there. I'm going to grab one of my longer double cap rivets, put the post in, put the cap on. There we go. It didn't make a big snapping sound, but it did pop. And then I'm going to press the rivet, or set the rivet. There we go. So there's one done. I'm going to do the other one exactly the same way. And then I will grab my other handle and put it on this side exactly the same way. Exactly the same amount, because we want these handles to be even. All right, straps, our handles are all on the bag. So there we have the Riptide handbag, and we can add our crossbody strap to it. So I'm just going to clip there on that side, come across, I'll fold the handle back, come across the bag. So we've got it hooked on one side, we'll cross over, and then I'm going to hook it on the other side. So if you're going to carry it as a crossbody, that's how you would do it. We are all done. This is the Riptide handbag by Needle and Anchor, and she's a very pretty bag. We got a really neat pocket with the Welt pocket and the zipper pockets, the the waves on the front. It's a gorgeous little bag. And there we go. So hopefully this tutorial helps you, and if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you could consider subscribing, that would help me greatly. And anyways, thanks, and I will see you for the next video.